The crisp morning air carried the sound of deliberate footsteps on cracked pavement as Officer Elias Thorne approached the doors of Parkview Apartments. Behind him, Pax, a battle-scarred German shepherd with a tactical vest-bearing faded insignia, walked with measured dignity, despite the limp in his left hind leg. The NO Pets sign had been recently updated, now reading NO Pets, NO exceptions in harsh red letters. Welcome to Mr. Bryan's Tale, where every story takes you on an unforgettable journey. Whether it's thrilling adventures, heartwarming moments, or tales that'll keep you on the edge of your seat, this is your destination for captivating storytelling. If you love getting lost in exciting narratives and discovering new worlds with every video, you're in the right place. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss out on the next amazing tale. Trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next. But this wasn't about a pet. This was about a warrior who'd given 8 years to protecting strangers, who'd taken shrapnel meant for children, who'd tracked missing persons through blizzards and located explosives in crowded terminals. Pax had earned his retirement. What he hadn't earned was being treated like unwanted property by a man who saw only dollar signs and liability insurance. Thorne clutched the eviction notice. 72 hours to remove the animal or face legal action. As neighbors began gathering on their balconies, sensing confrontation, Thorne knew this moment would determine more than where he and Pax would sleep. It would determine whether a community would stand up for those who'd stood guard over them. Sylvester Stone stood in his climate-controlled office, manicured fingers tapping the mahogany desk as Thorne read the notice. Behind Stone, framed certificates proclaimed his membership in various property management associations. Mr. Stone, Pax isn't a pet. He's a retired service animal with documented. Officer Thorne, Stone interrupted, his voice smooth as practiced sympathy. I understand your attachment, but insurance classifications are clear. Police dogs are trained for aggression. That's a liability I cannot accept in a family building. Thorne's jaw tightened. Pax has saved 12 lives. He's been decorated by 3 mayors. He took shrapnel protecting. Past service doesn't negate present risk. Stone slid a business card across the desk. There's an excellent facility in Riverside that specializes in retired working dogs. I'm sure they'd... That's a kennel, Mr. Stone. Pax isn't spending his final years in a cage. Stone's expression hardened. Then I suggest you find alternative housing. The policy is enforceable, and I consulted with legal counsel. You have 72 hours to comply, or I'll file with the county. Outside the office, Marcus, a 17-year-old with observation skills honed by a difficult childhood, had been listening. He pulled out his phone, fingers flying across the screen to the neighborhood group chat. They're kicking out Officer Thorne and Pax, the dog who found Jamie when she was lost. Meeting tonight, 7 p.m., courtyard. Within minutes, 50 neighbors had responded. Some remembered Pax tracking down a missing child during the blizzard of 21. Others recalled Thorne coaching Little League, Pax sitting patiently as kids practiced batting. The battle lines were drawn. I remember Pax. The courtyard filled with lawn chairs, phone flashlights, and a low murmur of shared memories. Thorne stood uncomfortably at the center, Pax sitting alert beside him, scarred muzzle scanning the crowd with professional vigilance. Jamie stepped forward first, 12 years old now, wearing her school soccer jersey. Her mother tried to hold her back, but Jamie shook free. I was 7, she said, voice small but determined. I wandered away from the parade, got lost in the industrial district. It was getting dark and I was so scared. Thorne closed his eyes, remembering. 30 minutes of searching. The girl's parents frantic. Then Pax, locking onto her scent from a discarded hair ribbon, pulling Thorne through 3 blocks of warehouses. Pax found me hiding behind a dumpster. Jamie continued. He didn't bark or scare me. He just sat down and waited until Officer Thorne caught up. Then he let me hold onto his vest while we walked back. Mrs. Chun spoke next, her accent thick with emotion. My husband, he has Alzheimer's. Last year he walked away from home, confused. Pax tracked him 4 miles to the overpass. Saved his life. One by one they stood. The contractor whose son Pax had pulled from the lake. The teacher whose classroom Pax had cleared during the bomb threat at Lincoln Elementary. 7 stories. 7 lives, 1 dog. Marcus filmed everything, posting to social media with hashtags that would trend by midnight. Hashtag save Pax, hashtag heroes deserve better, hashtag Parkview stands up. By morning, the video had 200,000 views. News vans were parking outside the complex. And Sylvester Stone was receiving calls from his corporate investors, very concerned about the optics. I'm calling the authorities. Stone arrived at the complex with 2 city enforcement officers and a clipboard thick with ordinances. The news cameras turned toward him like predators sensing blood. "This is private property," Stone announced, his composure cracking at the edges. "Officer Thorne has been given legal notice. This gathering is in violation of..." "In violation of what?" Marcus stepped forward, phone still recording. "Our right to assemble? Our right to petition our landlord? Or is it just inconvenient that people are noticing?" The enforcement officers looked uncomfortable. One of them, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes, recognized Pax and whispered something to her partner. Stone's face reddened. "This dog is classified as trained for aggression. The insurance policy clearly states..." "Sir," the female enforcement officer interrupted. "I'm Officer Patricia Mendez. Pax was the tracking dog on the Sanderson kidnapping case 3 years ago. He found my niece alive. I'm going to need a moment." She walked over to Pax, who regarded her with calm recognition. She knelt, and Pax, who never broke protocol on duty, gently pressed his muzzle into her palm. The cameras captured everything. Stone's lawyer arrived, whispering urgently in his ear. The investors were calling it a PR nightmare. Social media had identified Stone's other properties, all with similar policies. Protesters were organizing. "This is blackmail," Stone hissed at Thorne. "No, sir," Thorne replied quietly. "This is community. Something you wouldn't recognize because you spent so long seeing people as lease agreements and dogs as risk assessments." Young Jamie approached Stone, holding a photo. "This is my little brother. He's 3 now. Pax found him when he wandered into the construction site last month." Stone took the photo with trembling hands. That's my grandson." The photo showed a toddler holding Pax's collar, dust on his face, tears dried on his cheeks. Behind them, construction equipment that could have... Stone's breathing changed. When was this?" "October 14th, Thorne said quietly. "Your daughter called 911. We responded in 8 minutes. Pax found him in 11. He was headed toward the excavation pit." Stone's hand shook. He'd been in Atlanta that week, closing a property deal. His daughter had mentioned it. Some scare with little Matthew, but everything turned out fine. She hadn't told him it was this fine. Hadn't told him about the police dog that saved his only grandchild's life. "I didn't..." Stone's voice broke. "I didn't know." "You never asked..." Marcus said, not unkindly. "You saw a policy problem. You never saw him." Stone lowered himself onto a courtyard bench, staring at the photo. The courtyard had gone silent, except for the soft click of news cameras, documenting a man confronting his own humanity. "I built my business on efficiency," Stone whispered. "Minimizing risk, maximizing returns. I thought I was protecting the property value, protecting families from..." He looked up at Pax, who watched him with patient brown eyes that had seen humanity at its worst and best. "From the very thing that saved my family." Stone stood, approaching Thorne. "I owe you an apology that words cannot adequately convey, and I owe Pax a debt I can never repay. You can start," Thorne said carefully, "by changing the policy." "I'll do better than that," Stone replied, pulling out his phone to call his legal team. "I'm going to make sure what I almost did here never happens again." 3 months later, Parkview Apartments unveiled something unprecedented in the district. The Garden of Guardians, a memorial space honoring retired K9S and their handlers. Stone had funded it personally, transforming the unused lot behind Building C into a landscaped area with benches, a small fountain, and bronze plaques bearing the names of service dogs. Pax's name would eventually join them, but not yet. He still had years left. The policy change had gone further than anyone expected. Stone had worked with City Council to draft a PACS provision, legislation protecting housing rights for retired service animals across the district. 7 other property management companies had adopted similar policies. "You change your mind," Thorne said to Stone during the dedication ceremony. "Why?" Stone watched Matthew, now 4, carefully petting Pax under his mother's supervision. "I spent 30 years in real estate thinking profit and property value were the only metrics that mattered. But my grandson is alive because a scarred dog with a limp refused to give up searching. What's that worth on a balance sheet?" Marcus had been accepted to college with scholarship. His essay about community organizing and standing up for the voiceless. Jamie visited Pax every weekend, bringing tennis balls and stories about soccer practice. As the sun set over Parkview, Thorne sat on a bench with Pax's head resting on his knee. The community had fought for them. A landlord had found his humanity, and a retired warrior had earned what he'd always deserved, a home. "Good boy," Thorne whispered, scratching behind Pax's ears. "We're home." Pax's tail thumped twice against the ground, the closest thing to agreement a working dog would ever give. They'd both earned their rest. What would you have done? Sometimes the greatest battles aren't fought with weapons. They're fought with courage, community, and the refusal to let heroes be forgotten. Officer Elias Thorne could have walked away. He could have surrendered Pax to the system and found housing elsewhere. But he understood something Sylvester Stone had forgotten. That loyalty isn't a liability, and those who sacrifice for us deserve more than policy exemptions. They deserve our gratitude. This story reminds us that change doesn't always come from the top down. Sometimes it comes from a 17-year-old with a smartphone, a 12-year-old with a memory, and neighbors who refuse to stay silent when injustice wears a suit and carries a clipboard. Pax gave 8 years protecting strangers. The strangers gave him 3 months of their voices. And in the end, both the dog and the landlord found redemption, one through rest, the other through reckoning. Let's talk. Thaw balloon, have you ever had to stand up for someone or something when everyone else stayed silent? What gave you the courage? Dog, do you think retired service animals, police dogs, military dogs, therapy animals, deserve special legal protections for housing? Why or why not? Balance scale Sylvester Stone changed his mind when it became personal. Do you think people can only learn empathy through personal loss, or can we choose compassion before tragedy strikes? Mobile phone Marcus used social media to amplify the community's voice. When have you seen technology used as a force for good in your own community? House with garden, if you were in Thorne's position, would you have fought to stay, or would you have moved on to avoid the confrontation? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story moved you, share it with someone who needs a reminder that communities are stronger than corporations, and that every hero, whether they walk on 2 legs or 4, deserves to come home. Open book follow Mr. Brian Tale for more stories about courage, community, and the battles worth fighting. Because some stories aren't just told, they're lived.